centers one, and Geekie scores! Morgan Geekie, a huge goal for Boston. They're back up by 2 with 5:50 to go.
Well, I thought we gave them some pretty high-quality looks, so it's not an easy game to assess goaltending when you give them the type of looks that we gave them. You know, Ned's given us some great hockey here. He's battling hard for us. The decision I made was based on just trying to change momentum for our group to see if it could give us a jolt. It was more about that than anything.
It's Mike Sullivan talking about why he turned to Tristan Jarry in Saturday's loss to the Boston Bruins. Our question, @_Adam Crowley. Fan Morning Show Twitter poll brought to you by PJ Fitzpatrick Home Improvement Trust, PJ.com. Who do you go with tonight? Penguins, Preds at the paint can. 73% of people saying Ned, 26% of people saying Jarry. Mike Sullivan would go on to talk about whether or not Ned is tired.
It's a discussion that we've had, and we certainly communicate with Ned, and so it's not something that we're oblivious to, if that's what you're asking. You know, and he's reassuring us that he feels good and he has energy. As I said to you the other day, he's a guy that is in incredible shape because he works as hard as he does, and we feel as though he's been given us the opportunity to win games and is deserving of the net, and that's why we made those decisions to go with him.
So they know that he could be tired, and they've had those internal conversations. They've asked Ned, are you tired? It was obvious to me, Dorin, even before the first goal went in, that he was a little off. He was flopping around a little bit. I'm not a goaltender expert, but he did appear to be off his angle. He just didn't look right from the very start, and maybe fatigue is part of it. Maybe it's just you're starting a guy for the 11th consecutive time, and no offense to him, he's not a great goalie. And the more you throw a guy out there, the more he reveals his true colors.
Yeah.
That could be it. I still think I'm going with him tonight, though.
Do you?
I do.
Do you? Do you think that they should have sat him down? Do you think that he should have got that rest day on Saturday?
I can't go back on the opinion I had from earlier last week. We had Rossi on, and Rob said, play him against Toronto, Tristan Jarry. Get him out there. Have him knock the rust off. You can't play Nedeljkovic 13 straight games, and Rob looks really smart. If there was a time to have done it, it probably makes sense that it would have been that Toronto game, because you needed him against the Red Wings, Ned. You needed Ned against Boston. Eastern Conference foes that are really good. Hey, Toronto is in that category, but you wanted Ned to have had some rest down the stretch in Rob's mind. Hindsight being 2020, that's when they should have done it, but I just would have kept riding him. And they have, and unfortunately, he turned into a pumpkin a little bit on Saturday night.
I got a weird feeling about tonight. I feel like Jarry's going to get the start.
I thought the same thing until I heard Sullivan's comments where and what is he going to say? But he didn't make it about Ned's performance. He made it about the team's performance. It's hard for me to separate those things, though. I thought that the club in front of Nedeljkovic and in front of Jarry was not great. Like, they weren't getting in shooting lanes the way that we've seen. They weren't on the right side of the puck as often as we had seen during that point streak. They just didn't play the requisite level of defense you got to in a playoff race, and they certainly didn't play the requisite level of defense you need against a high-scoring outfit like the Boston Bruins. They played bad defense, and both goaltenders were bad. But Sullivan didn't say, yeah, Ned wasn't playing well. He said, we just needed a spark. The reason I'd go with Ned is because Jarry's Jarry. That might be base-level analysis, but what about Tristan Jarry's career in a must-win game gives anybody faith that he'd be able to go out there and get the job done?
Well, I mean, if that is the case and they go with Ned, there needs to be a real discussion in the offseason then, if you can't count on Jarry. I mean, I think that's where you're at, right? Like,
Absolutely.
You really need to figure out what you're going to do with him.
That's a really good point by you, man, and that is probably the broader, more important discussion. You gave Jarry 5 years, $5 million per, and you had your backup goaltender struggle on Saturday night, and it's not a sure thing that you go with Tristan Jarry tonight. It should be. It's very much the Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph deal, where if Kenny were the guy, even though Mason went in there and played well, if Kenny were the franchise quarterback, it doesn't matter how well the backup plays. You give him the keys. But they didn't. It doesn't matter how poorly Ned played. Do you give Jarry the keys here in a must-win game? You got to win both. I can't do it. And I don't know that Ned, I know, in fact, that he's not as good as what he's shown. You just look at his career statistics. His first real season in the NHL, Nedeljkovic was unbelievably good. Mm-hmm. And he was on the all-rookie team, and he had a .932 save percentage. Outside of that, Nedeljkovic has been below replacement level at goal until this recent stretch. But I can't get the visions of Tristan Jarry blowing big games out of my head. And perhaps that's not fair to him when I've just rattled off that Nedeljkovic hasn't been a good NHL goaltender for the majority of his career. I haven't seen that up close and personal. And the scars that I have after watching Jarry through his career, they're hard for me to forget. And then he gave away one on the Brad Marchand goal on Saturday night. It's not like Jarry came in and was good. He could have made it an easy decision.
Yes.
He got the net, and he did not play well.
Didn't come to the conclusion of I can get my job back by this performance if I do get us back in this game against Boston, a game that we absolutely need. And then he just wet the bed. It is a very, very serious discussion you have to have around the goaltending spot going in the next year. Because, if you go with Ned and neither of them are playing well, neither of them are playing well. One's getting paid $5 million over 5 years, or $5 million a year for 5 years. Neither of them are playing well right now. And you go with the backup? Oh, it's almost about over.
I would be inclined to trade Tristan Jarry this offseason. We had talked about it at the deadline. If you got your socks blown off for a deal for jars, as they call him, at the deadline, I'd have done it then. I would be just out and out shopping him this offseason. And I would try to get Ned back, but I wouldn't want him as my principal goaltender. If he's my 1B, if Ned is my number 2, I feel like you're in a pretty good spot. But I'm not breaking the bank for him either. If the Penguins do make the playoffs and Ned is the guy for these next 2 games, I could see it where some team's going to overpay him this offseason because of just the way goaltending is in the NHL. I would not overpay for him. I mean, I'm looking at $1.5 million, $2 million for a guy like Ned. That's backup goaltender money. If you got to pay him more than that, I'm saying see you later to him too. But for that price, I'd have him back.
Yeah.
Jarry, I can't do it though, for all the reasons you said. And that was an alpha dude moment on Saturday night. Hey, man, we're turning to you. This game's still within shouting distance. Close the door the rest of the way, and you're going to get your net back. And he turns the puck over. All of a sudden, it's on Marchand's stick, and it's in the back of the net, and freaking Geeky scores on a terrible play by Riley Smith. But still, you're allowed to make a save, Tristan Jarry. You're allowed to make a save, and he didn't. And that he couldn't stand on his head, it's probably, I don't know if it's a fair expectation, but that he couldn't stand on his head in a moment where he had an opportunity to get his job back, that tells me everything I need to know about him.
Everything you need to know.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Most importantly, whoever it is in net tonight, can you do a better job in front of him? You get the turnover, and Marchand buries it. Geeky wide freaking open in the slot because Riley Smith's out to lunch. Defend the way you did the previous 8 games before these last 2. And maybe it doesn't matter so much who's in net. But you got to play better in front of these guys.